Good morning, we'll see, or good afternoon. Here in Houston, it's afternoon, and I'm on the road, so we are starting the book club for Energy Healing for Animals. Yes, today is the day. Energy Healing for Animals, Energy Healing for Animals, and there's Bernadette. Good afternoon, and there's Candace. All right, so people are coming on. Hi, Carrie. Good afternoon. Yeah, so you're an hour ahead there in Maine. I'm noon. Normally it would be 10. So it's afternoon. And I'm very excited to get, good morning, good afternoon, Leslie. Hi, Bernadette. Very excited. Hi, Jan. Very excited to get going. Hello from Montana. Yay, second book club. And where in Montana are you from? I have family from Great Falls. Hi, Cindy. Hi, Colette. Hi, another Cindy. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Emily. Hi, Ruth. And it's 1 p.m. So good afternoon, Ruth. This is fun. I'm glad everybody's coming on. Hi, Teresa and Christine. Great Falls. No way. That's where my family's from. Okay, that's bizarre. That's bizarre. Yeah, okay. Hi, Barb. And hello, Tony, and Christina, and Connie, and Eleanor. All right, and Linda, 6 p.m. Good evening, Linda. Hi, Eleanor. Good morning, Teresa. Oh my God, that is so crazy that you're from Great Falls, Montana. All right, it's crazy. Okay, so we're here today to gather around Energy Healing for Animals. Hooray! And I'm really excited to do this. Okay, and hi, Cheryl. I was just saying that my dad was from Minneapolis, or from Great Falls. My mom was from Minneapolis. We have people from, and there's Olympia, and, all right. And Texas. Oh, yes. Diana, you're coming on Friday or Saturday? And Karen, Foothills of Alberta. And from Maine, hello Sharon. And Cindy Gantz Turner, I'm close to you right now. So this is fun. Okay, so for those of you, and Brenda in Arizona. Oh, good. I'm glad that you love this book, Cindy. Okay, so I'm going to introduce myself. Hi, Faith from Billings, Montana. Yes. And I've taught in Billings. Anyway, hi, Mary. Well, it's a good crew coming in here. Well, I'm really excited. And so for those of you that are new to me, my name is Joan Ranquet. I'm an animal communicator, energy healer, author, TEDx speaker, and founder of Communication with All Life University. And I've been an animal communicator for nearly 30 years. I've been teaching for 21. And I've had my school, Communication with All Life University, since 2009. So this is the 10-year anniversary. And my mission has always been to empower others to deeply connect with all life so that together we can give voice to those who can't speak for themselves. And ultimately we raise the frequency, and we're going to talk a lot about frequency in the next few weeks, of the planet. And so this year, being the 10-year anniversary, of course, now my, this is so loud. I don't know how to turn that off. My 10-year anniversary of my school. I decided to put a number on it, and I thought, if I put a number on it, then I can quantify how many animals we're helping. Hi, Jennifer from the UK, from Darlington. So I decided this year I'm going to put my mission out there to people, and I'm going to put a number on it, and the number is 1 million animals. And so my mission now is to help 1 million animals, and I can't do it alone. I need your help, and so I keep growing this mission, and it's been really fun. And I miss you too, Jennifer. I'm still hoping you're coming to the intensive. Anyway, so helping 1 million animals. And when I first started this Facebook group, it was pretty amazing, because as I started putting out there my mission of helping, and people started taking the free classes that are in here, and for those that have just joined this group for this book club, there's a lot of, there's 2 different master classes, animal communication and animals in transition. Hi, Lorraine. Hi, Sue. And so what happened was I started asking people for their mission, and it's been really powerful, because a lot of your mission is to help animals, and so we're exponentially going to hit that 1 million mark this year. I know it, because there's so many of you that you're part of my mission, but I'm also part of your mission, because you learning this content is going to put you out there in an even bigger way, even if it's not what you want to do for a career, even if it's just that you want to be better at communicating. So it's really important to just take into your heart what it is that you want to be doing for, as a mission. And all of that is so, your mission is as important as mine, and I'm sure yours involves animals, so I'm glad we're joining together. So anyway, this is my second book, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about this. So my first book is Communication with All Life, and some of you were in the last book club, and we had an enormous amount of fun. I love doing these book clubs, so clearly I have to write some more books. And I am. Weird. So anyway, the Energy Healing for Animals is my second book, and I'll tell you a little story about how energy works. I was, in 1998, I wrote on a Post-it note that I would get my first book published by Hay House. And then I thought, I'll get my first audio, because I was really doing a lot of scalar wave, a lot of energy work, a lot of chakra work. So I thought, I'll get my first book published by Hay House, and I'll get my first audio, because back then Sounds True was mostly audios. And so I thought, I'll get my first audio of my energy technique published by Sounds True. So I never sent in a proposal. I wrote and wrote and wrote, and I did healing work and did communication, and I had 10 billion case studies between my animal communication practice and my energy healing practice. And in 2005, a friend of mine said, are you sitting down? And I said, yes. And he said, well, I just spoke to Reed Tracy at Hay House, and I pitched you, and he wants to talk to you immediately. So I ended up, without a book proposal, got my first book deal with Hay House, which was my dream. Then, when that book came out, I thought, well, now I've got to get my audios done by Sounds True, and I didn't know anybody at Sounds True. And the next thing you know, somebody said that they worked at Sounds True. I sent them the audio of my scalar wave, and they said, no, it's a book. It's a book. We need you to write a book. So I would say that this book took me 4 years, 3 drafts, 2 boyfriends, 4 editors, and it came, here it is. So it was a long haul. Someone's saying that I'm an error loading. I am no error loading. Okay, I hope. Maybe it's your internet? I don't know. Anyway, so it was a long haul to get to this book because I wanted it to be something that was completely readable, completely easy, completely fun, but also a resource. And I wanted it to be something that anybody could, that you could pick up at different times. So my primary interest was in, and at this point I was already doing EFT. You know, the EFT and the scalar were my two forms of expertise, but I also knew a lot of other things, right? Like I'd taken a Reiki class. I've been certified in a number of things, but I didn't follow up with the certification. So I was able to speak to it personally, but also did a lot of research to make sure that this was okay and that I was in truth. And because when you're published by Sounds True, you have to be true. So anyway, and I really, want, the other reason I wrote this book is that it's, if everybody understood energy and their participation in energy and their responsibility for their energy and then their responsibility for what they've brought into their home, we'd have a different world. We would have a different world. And so I know animal people are passionate about animals and they're passionate about doing the right thing. So that's a great recipe to start with, teaching people about energy, because nobody's going to want to be more connected to being responsible for your energy than people with their animals if it's going to make their animal have a better life, right? So anyway, that's just a little background. And for me, I always say that even though I largely chose, I was interested in healing modalities and energy healing back in '86 when my sister was dying of cancer. So it's, this has been a long love affair, if you will. And I feel like my book was the marriage. So anyway, chapter 1, Groundwork in Energetics. And of course I have the quote here. Until one has loved an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened. Anatole France. And that's one of my favorite quotes because, we know the depth of loving an animal goes far beyond words, far beyond anything that we can express. And so those are the kind of people I want to be around. I want to be around the people that have a deep love for animals and for life and for nature and for wildlife. So the other thing that, and I also called this the Groundwork in Energetics because in many ways what we have to do is to create a grounding of ourselves. So we have to be grounded to work on animals. And you might say why? And we're going to go through this because animals are completely, their superpower is their instinct. Our superpower is logic, but theirs is instinct. And their entire survival depends on energy. So when we look at, and I just want to read this. Let's start with first things first. Energy is. It doesn't begin and it doesn't end. You can learn how to transform it and how to use it. It can gain velocity and momentum or drain and fizzle out, but it never goes away. And that's a really important thing to think about. And everything is made of energy, including us and the animals we love. Even man-made things, right? Like this, I hate admitting that I had a plastic, because at my house there's a rule, no plastics, but I use plastic. But this is made of energy, right? All the things that make something at some point were alive, right? Like, they come from live source. This comes from a tree. We know that everything has a source of energy. So when we are thinking in terms of our animals, you know, let's multiply that times 100, because they are completely energetic. And so what does energy connection mean for animals in our lives? Actually, it means everything. So animals in our homes are susceptible as we are to changes in the surrounding energy systems. They are part of the universal exchange of energy, which means they contribute to our energy and vice versa by giving, taking, and transforming the energy around them and us. So when we think about, you know, certain animals bring a certain energy to us, and you know, we think about how many animals are completely great energy, or little healers, or little Buddhas, or little teachers. And I'm going to take a moment. Is anyone else having trouble? Well, it may have frozen again because I disappeared. Anybody else having trouble? Oh. Okay. All right, so I'm going to keep going. Okay, good. Okay. So when we think about that energy is okay. Okay. All right. So when we think about that energy, there's some, I mean, it's always an exchange. It's always amazing to think about the idea that there are some and animals have been thinking about okay, I don't know why people are texting me in the middle of this, but I can't. I'm gonna throw my iPad out the window. Okay, so oh my God, stop! I don't know how to even turn my iPad off because it always goes to what can I help you with. All right, so anyway, I know, where is Claudia when I need her? Claudia is back in California, and I'm here in Houston because I'm going to be teaching. So Connie asked a great question. So how do we know if we're giving or receiving or depleting? And I want to go back to something though. When we think about what animals are in terms of on the planet, they are completely energetic. And when they're energetic, when we think of them, the reason that they're energetic is, again, it goes back to the fact that they are completely, their survival is based, I mean, again, their superpower is instinct, and our superpower is logic, intellect. And, you know, if we could get it together, it would be a great team. But we don't seem to rely much on our gut instinct, and we expect, and then a lot of the breakdowns in households, we expect them to use our logic, right? So let's go back to what it's like for them in the wild. You know, the ecosystem, if you will, of the planet is based on being able to you know, it's a giving and receiving world. It's and I wish everybody could eat grass and that there was no predator-prey situation, but there's everybody's survival in the wild is based on being able to touch in to their emotions and react. So let's say there's a group of zebras over here, and there's a group of lions over here. And if you're ever, I've taken people on lots of wildlife trips, and FYI, I still have room on the lion trip. There can be complete silence. There can be complete getting along. There can be complete. Okay. Oh my God. Now people are emailing me. There can be complete, just absolute peace, and a cohesive. I love to talk about cohesive field of energy. So you can have your antelope over there, and your zebra over there, and your lion sleeping over there, and everybody's just doing their thing. The zebras can all of a sudden, let's say one lion wakes up and it decides it's hungry. Now they've been for 12 hours within, you know, feet of each other, and one decides it's hungry. And now we have almost a vacuum in that energy field. And the zebra, without detecting anything from the lion's movement, knows it's time to go. And suddenly the lion comes up, and it's like off they go, and the hunt is on. And so what was it that zebra sensed? That zebra sensed a sense of just that the lion changed the energy field, just with its thought, its desire, and then suddenly its movement. And so now the zebra are operating in fear, and the lions are operating in, you know, necessity, that it's time to eat. So it is, their entire survival is based on feelings. And so what we get caught up in is more emotion, but their whole world is based on feeling. And when we know what they are, so all of them, like especially if they're prey, like horses, you know, deer, our goats, people's goats, all of that, they have an even expanded sense of their energy field, because they've got to be able to feel what is going on. And they have to feel into their herd, they have to feel into each other, they have to feel into what is safe. And they're the same with our dogs and cats. Now, our dogs and cats tend to be more predator and prey, so they have a little bit of both going on. So they can almost become, I always think of the predator like they can become invisible in a minute just so that they do what they have to do, and then the prey has to expand its field to almost keep the predator away. So we'll talk later on in the book about, our auric field and the field of energy. Actually, a little bit later in this chapter. But that's, so I want to really point out that every single thing our animals know and do and are is based on energy, which is, it's, feelings. And I look at the word as emotion as emotion, energy and motion. So I want to go through and see if there's any questions. Or comments. Okay, so Connie, how do we know if we're adding to or depleting another's energy? Need to understand that to be responsible for our energy. That's so true. So, when you think about, there's so many places. First of all, just having this awareness, the best way, I almost can't teach you this. It's something that, now that I put this awareness in your mind, you are going to be aware. But I would just say that you are somebody that loves nature, that loves to be outside, and I think that that's one of the best teachers of all, of feeling into, am I impacting this situation for the better? And then we start, we notice it with our animals, and then we notice it with people around us. And then, there's a common phrase like, oh, they're energy suckers, they're vampires. Well, we've been that too. So the more we're not pointing a finger at others, because, when we point a finger, there's three pointing right back at us. So the more we can just be aware of like, wow, rather than they're a vampire, like, they really need something right now. They're in a tough spot. And I've been there too. So when you start looking at it from that perspective, we start to know, wow, that was an email and a text. Crazy. When you start to look at it from that perspective, you can start to notice how much you are giving and taking in a situation. I hope that answers what you said, what you were asking. If it doesn't, we can come back to this. So now, Michelle says, I've learned so much about energy from my animals. I know when my energy is not quite right by watching my animals. They are aware of it long before I am. Sometimes it made me more conscious of my energy and when I need to adjust. And that is absolutely correct. Animals are our best teachers almost of how we could gauge our energy. So I always say that, if you look at the emotions, and I don't think there's any bad emotion. I don't believe there's a negative emotion. I don't use those words. I think that all emotions are very important. And I think some of our most delicious things are things like anger, because it's what forces us to change. And there are things like sadness and grief that we have to get to in order to find the peaks, and it's peaks and valleys, and the peaks of really being happy are so wonderful, but it's not sustainable in that way of like that blissed out. Or, when we ascend, I suppose that's the goal. But our compassion lies in our ability to touch into these other emotions. So when we look at something like, excitement, nervous, and then fear, those are really close. Like, they're next door neighbors. They're in a duplex or a triplex. And so when you look at like something that is great, like I got a new job, is exciting, but that kind of exciting can lead to nervous. So like Michelle was saying there, all of our feelings have an impact on our animals. And so even if something's great, we want to be able to be aware of what we're expressing. Now, so that brings me to Morphic Resonance. And if you have questions about that, please type that in. So Dr. Rupert Sheldrake wrote a book called Animals Know when their owners are coming home. And the premise of the book is that he wanted to show that there's an energy field connected, whether we're in the same room or not. So he put time-stamped cameras around the house and houses of many people. He lives in London, so he did the test in London. So he put a time-stamped camera around people's homes, and if they traditionally left their job, maybe they went to their job from 9 to 5, and so at 5 p.m. they left work normally, the dog would get up and sit by the door. So what he did was he put the cameras around the house, and he had people leave at random times. And they all of the dogs got up at the random time that the person was leaving. Maybe it was 2:15 or 3:07 or 4:29. And the dogs got up at the exact same time that the person left their office and sat by the door. I spoke the other night here in Houston at the Ions, and there were a bunch of scientists and energetic and scientists type people there, and they a lot of them knew Rupert Sheldrake, and they said there was one case that he's got a film of where somebody went and picked up the person and drove them around, and the time-stamped camera was in the house. And when the driver decided it was time for the person to go home, the dog got up and went to the door. So we're all connected to this field of energy. We're all connected, and he calls it a morphic resonance. And so when you think of that morphic resonance, that's that field of energy that is your home. That is the combination of you and all your animals and all the people in the household. And it's your own little ecosystem, if you will. It's just like that Serengeti scene where the giraffe and everybody's hanging out. It's our ecosystem in our own home. And so a lot of what training and things were about were based on kind of almost an alpha leader. And, as an animal communicator, especially in the 90s, as this idea was starting to come, a lot of women weren't comfortable with that. And I started really looking at, well, what is alpha? It's not standing up like beating your chest. It's more standing up into your energy. I don't even want to say power it's standing up to your own energy and being in that state. So if our home is a morphic resonance, and our home is that field of energy that is our family, that is our connected center, it also expands. Like while I'm in Houston, I'll tell you something in a minute about that field of energy, what happened to me the other day. So I had, so if that field of energy is a solid field of energy, and it has your dogs and cats, and in my case, my horses, that's the field of energy, the morphic resonance, the ecosystem, if you will. It has its own intelligence and its own imprint and its own unique address, if you will, in the ethers, in the cosmos, on the planet. And in that energy field, someone has to be the leader. And so I talk in this book, in both of my books, a lot about being the emotional leader, being the emotional leader of this morphic field, so that this field is always in resonance. It's morphic resonance. Things are good. And I love the idea that if, like right now I'm in Houston and it's so hot outside, and the thermostat here is set to freezing. So if the door opens and the heat blows in, it's freezing. If I stay in here, I'll be even more freezing. So the thermostat is set to freezing here. And so no matter what, when I walk in here, it will be freezing. And so I like for people to think that you're going to set the thermostat. So it's not like you have to be some alpha leader, but the emotional leader. And by being the emotional leader, you are going to set the thermostat for harmony. And the more we do this, the more we create harmony in our home, that's just the level we want to be. When something bad happens, we're fine. We can adjust it. When something great happens, great. We're not going to be overwhelming. And so that's where we want to be. And then we start carrying that out into the world. And it's really important to think about that. And I want to go back. Let's see. I love that the book started with a technical explanation of energy. This is what the logical side of my brain needed to understand, relax, and start trusting that my intuitive side has been experiencing all along. I really needed this chapter. Thank you. You know, I have a healthy skeptic in me too, and so I would see things happen repeatedly as I started playing with energy work, and yet there was no explanation for it. And there's a part of me that still needs an explanation. There's some things I'll never know, and I just trust it. But there are things that I like that have a step-by-step or a logic to it. And I think that a lot of brains need that. And so I wanted to be able to offer both in the book. So thank you. So anyway, if anybody has any questions on Morphic Resonance, let me know, and I'll tell you a little story while people may be typing stuff in. I tell the story in the book that my dog Olivia, so she had been with me in Denver, and I got separated from my then husband, and we grieved, and lost my my stepkids at the time. Then we got back together in Florida, and then we got separated again, the husband and I, and again lost the husband, the home, and the kids. So we grieved. We really grieved. We moved to Seattle. I had to take care of my dad, who was sick. My cat disappeared. We grieved. We got another dog. We still had the horses. Then a few years later, my dad died. And my dad, when I moved to Seattle, my dad was fragile enough that he probably only had 10, 15 encounters with my dogs. Now, I would say that my dad was great, and certainly they would have admired him and thought he was a fine fellow, but there was no great connection there, other than my dad was a true animal lover. But anyway, my point is, when my dad died, I watched my dog, Olivia, grieve with me. Grieve. And I finally had to look at her and I said, you know what? You can't do this. This isn't your grief. This isn't your loss. This isn't, you barely knew my dad. And I really got how much in this morphic resonance we are allowed to have. I can grieve and she can be fine. And I said to her, you know, you are the dog. You have to help me get out of the house. You need to get me out on the trails. You need to remind me that it's time to throw the ball. You need to do all the dog things that help me. I know you're an ascended soul, but I need you came back as a dog, so help me out here. And my point is that feelings can flow, but the thermostat is set to harmony. So no matter what is going on, we are in harmonic convergence, if you will. We are in this great state, and someone can grieve. Someone can get a great job. Somebody can get a book deal. Somebody can get stuff going on that's great. Somebody can keep moving through their relationship with a human, and it's not going to change the energy for the animals because work has gone into setting up harmony. And that's, kind of a hard concept, but it isn't. And I'll give you another example. So years later, Isabella dies, the other dog that we had. And I have Delilah, and Delilah and me and we all grieved. We all grieved. And then there was a certain point where I had to keep functioning, and I'd watch Delilah just grieve. We had a newer dog, Abby. She would grieve. And then Abby wasn't grieving as much, but Delilah still was. I wasn't maybe this minute, but Henry the cat was, right? Like, the beauty of knowing that you've set up harmony in this way is this, that you can observe somebody grieving and you don't have to fix it. They can be. And there's nothing more beautiful and healing than allowing somebody to just be. And so I had more moments of grieving when Delilah was not and Henry was not. Queen Latifah was not. We all had moments. We all had big moments together, but we all had individual moments, and we all allowed each other to just be that thing. We didn't have to fix it. We didn't have to do anything. We just were in this state of being. And that's what we want our households to be. That's what we want the planet to be. Wouldn't that be groovy? Okay. So I'm wondering how I can utilize this morphic energy to help a dog that has some separation anxiety. It's getting better, but what I can do to not only let him know I'm on the way home, but that he can relax in that. Does that make sense? That makes total sense. I do that all day long. I'm in Houston and my dogs are at my house. And so, and my cats and my horses. And I make it really clear, like, I am not apologizing for leaving. I get a little sad because I don't want to leave because I love my home. But then once I get on an airplane, I'm pretty excited about what I'm doing the next day. And, you know, I think that part of it is that I want my animals to have such autonomy. And the truth is, I say this all the time, it sounds really bad, but I want my animals, if something happened to me, they'd be fine. They would be like, yeah, I miss that Joan. But they've got their own world. And so that is every day my thing. Like, my dogs have to be trained enough that if they went somewhere else, you know, my house sitter sends me pictures of them on the bed with her, and I'm just glad. So I think with separation anxiety, it's a matter of not putting any extra feelings of yours into it. No guilt, no feeling bad, no frustration. All the feelings that we might have on the other side of their separation anxiety, if you can drop into neutral, and then you can allow your dog a safe space to find his or her own footing. I would consider flower essences. I would consider essential oils. We're going to go through a lot of that in this book. And I would also consider training and maybe even EFT tapping. But I think that start with imagining your dog completely autonomous and that you don't have any feelings around that. And that's where I would start. Okay, so Tori says, my dog seems to know when someone is home when they hear a car door shut in the driveway. They perk up, run to the door, and start barking. Is there a way to bring them more into tune with the morphic home energy? I mean, you might be surprised. It might not be just the door shutting in the driveway. I mean, it might actually be a little something more. And so just watch. But the thing is that you've got to be kind of, and again, the leader of the pack, if you will, or the alpha mare for my horsey people out there. That sense is that you've got your sight on it. You know what's going on. Okay, Cindy, the thing I get is let it flow. Hills and valleys, so to speak, but to keep yourself down deep, centered, and grounded, right? That is exactly correct. Like, it's a flow. So I had your point about staying neutral when leaving on a trip. when leaving on a trip and wanting your animal companions to go on with their lives while you are away is so helpful, as I'm leaving for Vermont tomorrow and I'm always worried about leaving my 2 dogs and 2 cats. I will seriously work on that. It is helpful to send them pictures mentally of where you are. It's helpful. You know what, the biggest thing, and I talk about this in my first book and a bit in this book, the biggest thing I think where animals get all wound up about us leaving is actually weeks before, because our thoughts usually include them. So let's say in a daily thing, I'm thinking I've got to get Delilah and Abby out on a walk, I've got to feed the horses, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to do this. They're used to all those thoughts. But when I'm all of a sudden looking up, how things to do in China, when I'm not teaching animal communication, that's when there's just like void. They're not connected to that. So when we start thinking about trips, our thoughts are unrecognizable for them. They're used to the landscape of your mind. Our thoughts are suddenly unrecognizable, and when we think of them, we think of, they're going to be so sad without me. Oh no, I hope the house sitter remembers that she's got to take them out on Tuesday to, it's like, so our thoughts become more worried. And the trick with this is we have to be aware that the worry of this isn't helping. So if you can send pictures of where you are and make it fun and not add in your worry, then it's great. In 92, I was on a tour with a play So I used to send my horse postcards, and when I would get back from tour, the postcards would be hung up outside her stall. So if you can do it without having guilt, yes, that's a great thing. Or worry. I've been using a lot of things you mentioned. Essences, tapping, training. I think the missing piece has been my mental neutrality. He's come so far, but every once in a while he reverts. I think it has a lot to do with where I am mentally when I leave him. It seems to me that I need to be fully aware of my mind space every single time I leave. Thanks, Joan. I feel I have a complete plan of action now. It is so true. I walk out the door. There is no feeling bad. There is no feeling anything except what I'm doing is going to be so fun. And what they get to do is going to be so fun also. I mean, you know what? If I were a dog and I got to nap, that'd be pretty great, right? And then somebody saying, not the answer I was expecting. Thanks so much for asking this question. And now I'm curious as to what you were expecting. But anyway. All right, so I want to, so keep them coming. I'm going to kind of keep going on. I want to talk a little bit about, we talked about animal sense energy, and that, everything has a frequency. So I think, again, I'm going to say this 1,000 times, and my students are so sick of hearing this, but I don't believe there are negative emotions. What I believe is there is a frequency to them. So let's say worry is going to have kind of a static, and it's going to go right up there with anxiety. And if we think about sadness, it's got a more of a pulled down frequency, but it doesn't mean that it's bad. And so it's contracted, and then that frequency might draw someone over to help us feel better. But it also could send somebody away because they don't know what to do with it. So when we feel all of these feelings and we don't need something from our animals in that way, they can make really clear choices because they understand vibration and frequency. So everything in our field, we're adding or we're giving or responding to other frequencies. So that's, and this is an interesting thing. I love thinking about this. So even a room holds a frequency, right? And so a room can have a vibe. And I'm just going to read this. And so our animals might sense that a room is not good. And the walls of a room where a trauma was experienced will hold that trauma in their cells and membranes until somebody purposefully, intentionally, and energetically changes that vibration. A church will hold the vibration of the prior service, even when it is empty. And even a decomposing body is still vibrating. You can't stop the natural flow of the universe. So we can, and then the next section is energy transforms. But we can be part of transforming and transmuting energy. So, and frequency, there's a lot of energy healing books out there, but I like to say that energy healing, energy medicine, and vibrational medicine all share something in common. A frequency is involved, and that frequency is the broadcasting of a wavelength fine-tuned by intention. I would say all modalities share one thing, and that's intention. But if we think of it in terms of a vibration, so it's a wavelength of intention. And so, and that goes for, the idea of spiritual healing. Prayer would have the wavelength of a frequency. So all of these, all of it is prayer, emotion, all of it. It comes down to big intention. And all of that, whether it's breath, emotion, prayer, ritual, intention, inspiration, blessings, our own thoughts can have an effect on something, can be a wavelength into something. So you had a question. I was wondering, why is it that a trauma naturally clings to a wall space aura, but raising the vibration or healing requires intention? Is that a meaning of life kind of question? No. What it means, it's really simple. That the walls are porous. They were at one, going back to what I said at the very beginning of this, every single thing. I hate plastics, but I was here in Houston and I got a green drink and it came in plastic. The plastic is porous. I mean, plastic's a bad example because it lives forever. But at one point, everything comes from living things, and energy. And so, at some point, all the pores of the wall are going to absorb those feelings. And as they absorb, because they're static, it's an inanimate object, until somebody comes along and puts intention toward changing that, wavelengths of intention, it's going to hold the last thing it had. All right. You spoke about wavelengths can come together and cause so wavelengths don't necessarily come together and cause chaos. Chaos is a whole other thing. Wavelengths can actually go in and cut through chaos. We will get to that. How do you change that for long term? I'm asking this more for a friend. Christina, you know what? You're going to be in the middle of the intensive. That's all we're going to do in the last 3 days is really talk about wavelengths and chaos. Okay, so chaos. All right, so her life is very chaotic, and I know that her little dog is being naughty for a reason. Well, absolutely, that chaos is an incoherent field of energy, right? A wavelength, and all of these things I just said. Breath, emotion, prayer, ritual, intention, inspiration, blessings, our own thoughts, other people's thoughts about us, add to the chaos unless we're going in with add are the wavelength that can cut through the chaos. Other people's thoughts about us in a bad way can add to the chaos. But when we start thinking in terms of, oh, she's just going through something right now, then we're softening that. But we have to remember that we add to these things all the time. Yeah, so the wavelength is what cuts through the chaos. And thought, prayer, emotions, intentional healing, intentions, all of those have a single-minded focus. Okay. Yes, you have to go to class. Is it really that late? Oh my God, I went on and on. I didn't even get to meridians or chakras. So see, I had to move my thing away, so I had no idea the class time. So Cindy has to go to advanced animal communication to do medical intuition in my school. Yeah, a few of you have to jump off now. Well, I didn't mean to go on and on and on because this was so much fun, and I really have to watch the time when I get talking about energy because I can really go. So there are a lot of things in here that I really didn't even get to because there's so much to talk about the invisible intelligence of energy, like chakras, meridians, neural pathways, nerves. Our nerves are part of that. If you've ever seen a nerve get injured, it can come back. And then also cellular memory and muscle memory. I want to just say one thing about muscle memory because it's so important. Often our animals really get caught up in muscle memory. So that's where energy healing and body work and all sorts of things are so important because I'm glad, Boo, go to class. I love today too. If you think about the body an animal, if it's hurt its hind leg, it won't want to put the weight down. And so we have to just absolutely, and there's Bernadette, our holistic vet, work with acupuncture, body work, energy work, things that help our animals when something goes on, because the muscle memory will keep them lame for a lot longer. They have the same fear of putting their foot down in the same way that we do if it's hurt. So anyway, I just want to close up and thank you for coming to the first week of the book club. I promise to be more timely. Energy healing for animals. I'm here in Houston. I'll be teaching EFT, a great energy modality, at Body, Mind, and Soul on Friday, and then animal communication on Saturday and Sunday. And then I'm glad, Mary. And then I have the intensive coming up, and the animal communication level 1 home study course. So thank you, everyone, and I'm really glad you were here, and I'll see you next week.